I am here with Mark Peralta, and you were a former preacher for a while. So I got questions about, you live in Texas, and you were a former preacher, and you were part of the network and all of this, and I'm seeing, maybe 20 years ago, there was a question as to whether you're going to be a Republican or a Democrat. You wouldn't be able to just tell in the first 5 minutes of talking to somebody, But things have gotten really politicized, and religion has become, in the Venn diagram with the Republican Party, it's almost a circle. I think in my life I've met, being generous, 5 atheist Republicans, and they know that they are grossly outnumbered, that the religious right basically owns the GOP. And there's a number of things that go along with that. I mean, I'm curious about if you were involved in the clergy here in Texas, and you saw a lot of this transition, because you didn't come out of belief until fairly recently, right?
Yeah, it's been like three and a half years.
Yeah, recent enough to still be raw.
For sure.
Yeah. So please, tell me how you feel about the integration of religious politics and in identity politics as well.
Yeah. So, I tell you my story. I came out of very liberal parents, as many Hispanics typically are. And so, he's a Democrat, my daddy is. But, having moved here, Texas, where there's so many Republicans, and I went to a Baptist university, so most of my friends were Republicans. You can quickly get wrapped up in that whole thing, because I'd say one of the things that's the biggest appeal for the Christian church is sort of this idea that the Republican Party is behind them, and that the conservative values that they embrace are part of or intertwined with Christian conservative values, and that we as Christians have to protect our customs, our fundamentals, and if government is not on our side, then it could get quickly taken away.
Let me ask you a more prying question. When I got involved in activism around Y2K, I was hearing that we were supposedly in a culture war, which I was completely oblivious to. I wasn't aware that I was at war with my own countrymen. I thought we had the same culture, but turns out not, it seems. So you were still in it when I was hearing about all this. Can you give me your perspective on the so-called culture war? And do be careful to speak up, because there's a lot of background noise.
So I think that part of the rhetoric that they're implying, that they're using, is that, first of all, there's a constant demonization of anything that's liberal, starting with liberal theology. And so I feel like a lot of people will associate liberal theology, which is evil, from the Christian perspective, with liberal politics. And so the Liberal Party is trying to take away our rights.
Wait, there's a Liberal Party?
Well, it all gets all mixed up, in my opinion. It just, there are different things, but in the mind of most people, they're associating them both.
I have seen where you've got, where there's an awful lot of binary thinking, and you think that you have the right, which is just the whole right. Everybody on the right is all the way on the right. And if you're moderate, you're a socialist. If you're a moderate right-winger, you're a socialist. If you're centrist, if you're liberal, you may as well be communist. Communism, socialism, Marxism, leftism, far leftism, all the same thing. If you have to put everybody in two boxes, and you've got a reverse of the, it seems to me like you've got a reverse of the bell curve. You drop anybody in the middle, and then you have to roll to one side or another.
Sure.
Whereas in my perspective, according to the bell curve, most of us would be sitting around the middle, and it's almost impossible to find anybody at these extreme opposite ends. But the people I'm arguing with every day think that everybody is at one or the other extreme opposite end.
And that's what they do. They do that with everything. It's like either this or it's totally bad.
Yeah.
You know. So for me, as I began to question my faith and began to, walk away from this ideology that there's a God, that the God has spoken, and that the Bible is His word, then all of a sudden none of these things really matter to me anymore if you're trying to preserve, the Bible or that sort of thing. But for me, what started my change in perspective with regards to the Republican Party and their ideals, I think it all started with Trump and his behavior and his moral behavior.
Were you ever of the opinion that Trump was a Christian?
I didn't think so.
I'm an atheist, and I don't want him either. But I have to give Christians that don't think that he's Christian, I have to side with them. That man is clearly not Christian. He's playing a game to manipulate the rubes. I'm not saying he's atheist. I don't think he is atheist. I think he is a God. I think he believes in God, and he believes that he is God.
Sure.
Or something really close to that. Everybody thinks that their God completely agrees with whatever they believe, right?
Uh-huh.
So Trump and his God are completely in line.
Yeah. And so what I see happening as well is the Christian church will sort of adopt the whole Messiah thing and then put it on someone that's in a position of power. So Trump becomes sort of like the living Messiah for the Christian church. And now he's chosen by God. He'll do the photo op on, with the hand on the Bible, even though it's upside down, and we saw it.
Can you find a less Christian to exemplify that far right-wing Christian dominionism movement? I mean, fuck. Right. He's the least Christian, and I say this in all sincerity, I think he is the least Christian president we've had since Lincoln.
I can see that. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. And not to mention his own behavior, and everything he does is like it should be you think be the other way around. But I don't know, as we're coming to find out, not everyone that's like this exemplary Christian or pastor is really an upright person. I don't know if you've heard about recently some of these preachers that are getting in trouble.
Oh, you don't know if I've heard of that, huh? Here's what I noticed. If you put everything into a black or white perspective, and then you take the good guys, and they are the light, and then there's a bunch of sexual controversies. Maybe they're family values oriented, which means they're gay.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow they hate gays, but they're gay,
and they'll deny it.
Yeah. But they got to rent a boy with an 8-inch penis, and that's on his resume that he has an 8-inch penis, and that's why they hired him.
Right.
And then, so these are the black spots in the white area, and then you've got the really dark people, and you're looking for something they did that's good, which again you get the high contrast. And instead of putting people in either of these boxes and then seeing the high contrast, the light spots and the evil, because Hitler was an artist who loved dogs. You can say something good about almost anybody, doesn't matter how evil they are, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to, if you're going to idealize the good side, it's going to be kind of hard to overlook all of the glaring shadows of the skeletons in their closets, which is why I don't understand why people think in such a binary fashion. I remember when I was a kid, thinking that everybody's, kind of in the middle. That everybody is a blend. We have our good moments, and we have our generally bad people, and we have our people who have learned their lessons, because that doesn't always happen. But you should celebrate that when it does. And I face another philosophy that is only interested in othering.
Sure.
Everyone. And when I say that, I'm talking about the people I know most, the closest in my life, the people in my own family, many of my own friends, who I no longer have any association with, because they've decided that I am the other category.
Right.
So there's a fence, and there's good on this side of the fence, there's bad on that side, and I'm on the wrong side of the fence.
Yeah, that's me. That's me too. That's my family. I'm the other guy.
When did that happen for you?
About 3.5 years ago.
So it was abrupt?
I mean, it was gradual, but I mean, when it came, it was just like just a light switch, just turning the light on. And so another shocker for me was Ravi Zacharias, the apologist.
Yeah.
I mean, I really I looked up to him. I thought he was a great teacher. I liked the message. As a Christian, to me, it made sense. His whole argument about morality and God's objective morality and the supreme lawgiver stuff. But then look what he was doing. It's like, how do these two things? They don't really. It doesn't make sense. How could you be doing that?
What was he doing?
Taking advantage of.
Take any religious leader you want to name, and at some point you find either a homosexual relationship, you find an extramarital relationship, or you find a child relationship, or a homosexual extramarital child relationship.
What was he doing, for people who don't know?
Yeah, so I guess for Ravi Zacharias was not enough to make money off writing books and speeches and all that stuff. He owned a massage parlor.
Wow.
That he frequently visited, and then he would have the masseuses give him sexual favors.
Wow.
Until the whole thing blew up, and so he was caught.
What amazes me the most is all these people that when they believers, and again, I'm talking about people I know well. I'm not talking about people that I'm just putting into a category to generalize them. I'm talking about my own friends and family. Some of my friends, because there's been a lot of polarization lately. We were all in one happy clique 20, 30 years ago, but then we found ourselves on either side of an ever-widening divide. Whether we think that people should have human rights, or whether we think that compassion, which what we would call compassion, is what the other side calls woke. And that's the worst thing you can be. Compassionate about somebody else's problem is the worst thing you can be. And I'm just having trouble understanding the division in our country.
And for them, I think they feel justified in othering people, in demonizing people, because they're thinking, well, the Bible tells me so. God must be, proud of me, and that's what he would want. And that's the problem when you have a book that's supposedly holy and it's telling you God's words, right? And people make decisions based on that are wrong.
I know so many people.
They continue on that.
I know so many people who are drug addicted, alcoholic fornicators with tattoos on their fourth marriage and their fourth felony conviction, who claim that they're better than me because they're Christian.
Right.
What does that even mean? Have you ever cracked open the Bible? Do you even know what it says? Do you care?
They're the Christians that Trump represents. They're American Christians. 50% of adult Americans support Trump.
And part of that is because, if he's Christian and he's behind, Christian values, if he stands for that kind of stuff, then that must be whom God's using.
Yeah. All right. I'm not gonna drag this out any further. But thank you for meeting us for drinks and for dinner. And someone in your position, I want to say that I was friends with Daniel Dennett, although every time I met him, he forgot who I was, so I can't really say that he and I were friends. But I allied with so much of his perspectives, especially when he went on to the Clergy project, and he was talking about when people come away from their work in the clergy, their career in the clergy, and when they realize they don't believe it anymore. He and his wife, Linda Lascola, noted a change in so many perspectives, that they became more liberal, they became more tolerant, they were less judgmental, they were more into education. It's like they became a new person, a better person, when they stopped believing. And I don't want to put words into your mouth. I want to hear the words from your mouth. And if they don't agree with what I'm assessing, then that's fine. But let's hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, no, it starts with the book, and the book is wrong about many things. And then it continues on with the preacher, which I used to be, preaching, quote unquote Christian values. The Bible is the Word of God. Homosexuality is wrong, and it just continues
along with eating shellfish and getting tattoos.
Well, then you have some cherry picking, because some of them are not gonna care, and it's so hypocritical. In fact, the whole Christian faith to me is hypocritical, because it's cherry picking the commandments, and it's saying goodbye to the Mosaic law and all the sacrificial law, to its convenience. All right, let's forget about circumcision. Let's forget about, having to memorize the Torah, because all that matters is that Jesus and you believe that, So yeah, I'm glad to walk away from that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.